Podcast. I'm Brandon.
I'm Eric.
And today we have a very special guest. Her name is Alexandra Mantura, and she's the name behind AM Photography. Alexandra, how are you?
Good, thank you.
You
How
well?
you guys going?
Very good,
You
thanks.
worked hard on that intro.
Hey, man.
Yeah, it was good.
I pumped it up.
I don't think I've heard my last name so many times. Thank you for pumping up my fragile ego.
Man. It's a big
Thank
deal.
you.
We also have Anthony on the controls. Say what's up, Anthony. My man.
I haven't heard him speaking.
So I can call you Ali, right?
Yeah,
That's
of course
how-
you
that's how-
can.
that's how I know
Ali,
you.
that's what everybody calls me.
Yeah,
Sometimes
very
Ali,
respectful.
sometimes Alex, but it's Ali usually. And
yeah.
you guys are my friends.
Yeah,
so.
I
exactly.
like it.
So
Yeah.
Ali, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up.
Okay, so I grew up basically around the southern suburbs, like Rockdale as well. I hung around like the western suburbs a little bit, but yeah, Rockdale and Brighton Les Sands is like mainly where I grew up. I went to Rockdale Public School. I have a twin sister, which is really cool, and a little bit of a younger brother. He's like a year and a half younger than me.
What's it like having a twin sister?
Um,
Can you read
Really
her
tough.
mind?
Competitive. No, not at all, not at all. That's like very,
Myth.
I think you can read anybody's mind that you're close to.
Right.
That's the thing, somebody that you're close to. But no, not particularly. We're very different. We're something that you might call mirror twins, which is like uses her left hand, I use my right hand.
Oh,
She's
wow.
very like
Yeah, true.
practical and physical. I'm
Yeah.
more artistic and academic. So
Yes.
like
Yep.
we're very different. I usually find that with twins, especially when you grow up together, we're identical. So we look exactly the same
Twins are
almost.
identical. That's,
Yeah, we are
yeah,
identical.
I see a picture later.
It's very competitive. People compare you constantly until like you're after a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everybody calls you the twins and blah blah blah. And we'd be like, we're individual.
I have to like
So-
separate eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she's quite cool. We're like close, you know.
Yeah, true.
Were you a good student?
I was like teacher's pet type, straight A. I would be like kind of cheeky,
Yeah.
but I think I was like smart enough and savvy enough to like kind of like put it to the side. I used to be
Yeah.
able to get away with like a lot more than maybe my sister or my brother
Yeah.
did. I enjoyed school. Like I'm quite an academic person. Like I'm doing education. I'm in public education. I'm training to be a trainer and assessor
It's awesome.
for registered training organizations for photography and film.
Wow.
So academia is like kind of like my thing,
Hmm.
but I also obviously got a creative side of my brain as
Yeah.
well.
So growing up, you were always creative, as you said.
Yeah.
Were you into photography straight away?
No, not really. Not
You're just
really.
creative. You just
It was just more creating and building stuff. I
Mm.
think I don't know if you guys remember like the Super 8 camcorders. Yeah. So I used to use like a cassette camcorder to go out because like we were quite little hoodlums. Like when I was like 15, 16 and like nobody had phones then. Like I'm 28 this year. So like nobody had phones with cameras. Nobody ever texted each other to meet up or whatever. So I would just film all of our like crazy sort of like street shenanigans
Yeah.
like on trains and going through like
Do you still have those footage?
I do have
That's
it.
sick. It'd be
It's
so
not.
sick.
It's not for internet or personal consumption because a lot of it is very inappropriate.
Yeah.
Like, but definitely I could edit some stuff out
Yeah.
and make it
Get around
viral.
it, yeah.
But I feel like I was one of the only ones who was walking around with a cassette camcorder,
At that
and
time.
like, yeah, at the time, and like I used to hang with like lads, like lads and lasses. I was probably the more innocent
Yep.
of the lot. So I think that's when it started. I always like to record things. Photography for me is not so much an art form. It's just a way of life, like to record everything that I
nice.
possibly can. And then sometimes I find if you're lacking inspiration and things like that, I don't get a lot of inspiration from photographers, to be honest with you. I don't trawl through Instagram, Pinterest, anything like that. I
Yeah.
don't really go and see any photography exhibitions. I look at art.
Yeah.
So painting,
I think
painting,
that shows
carpentry.
for your photography as well.
Exactly,
definitely shows,
exactly.
yeah.
I feel like I'm more a set builder because I don't really enjoy. I know it sounds really bad. I'm sorry, guys, but I don't enjoy so much shooting. I don't enjoy the technical side of a camera as much as I enjoy setting up a set and directing.
Okay.
And I could literally get somebody to take the photo for me.
Yeah.
Like I'm at the stage where I am very interested in directing things.
Yeah.
an art direction and production side of things. Like obviously I do still love the camera because I am a nerd. I spent a lot of time before
Learning
I was
your
like
craft.
15 being a massive nerd with photography. Like you got to lock yourself away for a massive amount of time.
Apart from
and
the
have-
Super 8, what was the first camera you got?
The first camera I used was when I was in Georges River College, which is like Oatley
Where's
High.
that?
Oatley High in like going towards the Shire.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Go on,
So there was a photographer teacher called Kat, and she was crazy. This crazy, small, skinny little Italian woman who like smoked all the time, who had no
Yeah.
kids, and I thought she was awesome. And I started learning on film,
Okay.
like for stills photography.
Right.
We used to check in and out film cameras because they were one of the modern schools who taught TAFE and vet subjects in high school.
Yeah, that's great.
So I started with film,
It's a dying
black
art
and
now.
white film.
Dying art now, like film.
It is. There's always a resurgence. There's always going to
There's
be
like
a
a-
resurgence with
yeah.
old stuff, but it's usually trendy. It's not usually how you would do it. Not a lot of people know how to develop film. Like
Yeah.
I know how to develop my
Yeah, I
own
wouldn't have a
film
clue.
Yeah.
and print it. I've got a dark room and a enlarger and everything like that. And I find that me working off film, like you got to remember, guys, film is physical. So
Hands on.
doesn't matter how many photos you take on a digital camera. Doesn't matter how much you zoom into it. It's always just pixels.
Yeah. Well.
But film is physical. It's
Mm.
grain. It's real. It's going to last.
Mm.
So I find that composing a shot and framing, not being able to see it on the back of the camera is a really important tool that I was lucky enough to be exposed to and learn before I got into digital photography.
Right.
Once I did buy my own DSLR camera, which I saved up for and worked
They're
for
expensive
ages.
as well. Yeah.
It's the one. I think it's the first thing I bought when I got like, you know, when you get out of high school or you're in high school and you have a
Yeah.
part-time job at Macca's or
Buy
whatever.
the first.
So I think I didn't know how to work it. I was freaking out.
Really?
The whole back of the camera was black. I was like, I know the mathematics. I know the equations. What's going on? So I think that I was quite intimidated by digital photography, but once I learned about lighting, which is my thing, because as you see, if you see through my stuff,
Definitely, yeah.
whether it's like a political campaign, whether it's commercial, I always use artificial lighting.
Right.
I more like to paint with light and take a picture. I don't. I find it a little bit underwhelming going out and taking pictures of things that are already beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that, and that's my inspiration. But I want to create something that's not there.
Yeah.
I want to manifest something. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think this
So-
past year I've started to realize the importance of lighting. I never like before I knew it was important, but I like lighting, for example, because like I'm a film student, and I'm into
set.
film. Lighting a scene for a set could
Very
change
important.
everything.
Absolutely.
And I saw that with when we did our little shoot when you were lighting stuff. That's when I started to realize like, oh wow, like this changes everything. And like yeah, so just you were gonna say
No,
something?
did you learn like that in school, about lighting, or you just did it hands on?
I
like,
did. I
you
did
did?
learn it in school. I went to Ultimo, and some people might knock TAFE and like public education, but like honestly, that Ultimo course, photo imaging, is the best like photography course in Australia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my
Like-
question. Would you, for someone who's wanting to get into photography or get into what you do, would you recommend going to school or learning it yourself?
It
first?
depends.
hands
It
on.
really depends. With me, I have to be in a classroom.
No,
I'm an extrovert, as you can see.
it's good.
So I have to interact and have encouragement. There's other people who are more, I feel like the generation who's coming up now, who's like 16, 17, is much more social media photography, technological
That's
savvy than I was.
Yep.
We kind of like, see, I graduated when Instagram came.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So it kind of
New
crushed
era,
me.
Yeah, because you already had all those.
So I think a lot of the time, even though the quality on social media and Instagram might be a little bit more subpar than a lot of purist photographers
Yeah. Right.
want to admit, the kids are much more social media and technological savvy than I was. They're
Right,
definitely still more business-like. They know about marketing. It's a part of their everyday life. So I find with me, at least, we learnt on like really, really nice in big cyclorama studios, like pull down lights,
Yeah.
old school
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like
right.
I got taught by very old school teachers about lighting ratios, like not just, oh, I'll test the lighting out, the difference between the output of the lighting. Like, so for example, if you've got a light here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you've got the subject here and the camera here. If you pull back double, it's a quarter of the light. If you pull it back half, it's double strength.
Yeah.
So it's always mathematics. And I learnt purely off mathematics even before I touched lighting.
Yeah.
So it's all equations.
So much
See,
goes
we
into that,
we
like,
got taught that, but in a whole different way.
It's just by your eye.
Yeah, we
It's
got taught
all
that.
logic, really.
Right.
Like, so in a
interesting.
sense, I found that because I'm like quite academic and mathematical minded. I found that a lot easier to understand. There's a lot of technical jargon that goes with cameras and lighting and sound and film. But I think as long as you learn it in your style.
Right.
But I think with photography and film, you got to go to class.
Yeah.
You got to interact. Unless like you're a massive mastermind and you can like set stuff up at home, I would say that going and studying it in a studio with a teacher as a mentor, mentors are like really, really important, I think.
Sorry, guys, just had to have a quick check of the cameras. We're all good now. You were talking about mentors.
Yeah, what do you think about mentors?
Mentors. You know, I've never really had a mentor, but like obviously they're important. I agree. Like you said, you had a teacher, you had a mentor. Through how long were you at school for again?
3 years.
3 years. Yeah. See, that's awesome. I never had a mentor. I just sort of dove into it, but I'm so open to that thought of having a mentor and someone coaching me through a lot of things. Even these guys would remember when we were on set, and they were actually telling me like, you know, go to a class and get mentored and get, you know, keep working on your craft. So I guess that's a really good thing that you brought up, like having a mentor behind you, backing you. What do you think, Eric?
For me, I like to approach it like an apprenticeship. Like I want someone who knows more than me.
Yeah.
And kind of work under them. I don't have that, but I find it in different people when I kind of.
Well, I think
a
like
bit
any
from
kind of manifestation of that is really important as well. I think with photography and film, you're always going to learn. You're always going to have somebody above you. Someone's better than you. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not the best photographer. Like, there's photographers who are younger than me that like blow me completely out of the water. And I might like look, like there's certain mentors from certain sections. So like, I'm not great at posing. At directing,
posing,
for
like,
posing,
right,
for
okay.
fashion.
Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah,
like I'm more of like a loosey goosey type. I'm more like hands, and I just shoot and like kind of interact.
Yeah.
But I found that really, really difficult to start off with, to pose people, and a lot of other people. Like there's a photographer called Aaron in the Inner West, and he just gets people's faces and the vulnerabilities, and like just boom. And I can't do that as much because I come from a commercial background.
Yeah.
So I have mentors in different sections of what I maybe need to know.
And you take a bit from each one of them.
Exactly.
Like, make it your
But
own.
it also shows that you're in tune of what you're not good at, and you're willing to get better at it. Some people are quite stubborn, and they're like, they know they're not good at that thing, but they'll never really say anything about it, and they'll just kind of push it aside.
Yeah.
I know people like that. Good question.
I think it can be like daunting as well, being in a room with people that you know are better than you. But it's good to be in that environment because like nothing good's from being comfortable. Like you got to keep growing.
And really, I think that it's part of like our generation and the social media generation. Everybody's got their platform. Everybody's got their say. Everybody thinks they're hot shit.
Yeah,
100%.
so
Don't
true.
you think? Even I do. Even I've got a big head from like the last couple. Honestly, for the last couple of years doing Instagram stories and having like certain campaigns and things, and you kind of go home and you got to really chickadee check yourself a little bit. And
Yeah.
it's like a lot about ego and things like that. And I find a lot of the time, not that I'm knocking the Inner West, but a lot of the time when I meet people in the CBD or the Inner West who kind of have this platform, it's called, you guys know about echo chambers.
Tell us, educate us.
Yeah, tell us about this.
So echo chambers is like small parts of like a community, like say, like if you were to live in like a share house and people would come around and record and it'd be all musicians, that's an echo chamber. And everybody gets feedback just from that echo chamber.
Gotcha.
Nobody else comes here to go out to Merrylands and kind of talks about this sort of stuff and mentors and things. So echo chambers is like it's like a sociological term.
Is it like yes men? Like you're surrounded by
Yeah,
yes men?
in a
Kinda,
sense, in
yeah.
a sense. I don't know enough about it. Gosh,
You know
it's
more
kind of
than us, so.
embarrassing when like it goes forward and whatever, and I can't really describe it to you. But like an echo chamber would be sort of like that sort of hipster thing where it's like you don't get feedback from anybody except inside that circle.
Yeah,
Right,
gotcha.
okay.
And do you? I find that on either social media or in business, you find that people are in echo chambers. Say I work with somebody who's a hairdresser in the wedding industry. The wedding industry is an echo chamber because the wedding industry is really small. So a hairstylist might get a lot of really positive feedback, but they're not really concerned or get any feedback from anybody outside
Just
of their
people in the
circle.
wedding
Right.
industry.
Exactly,
Gotcha.
exactly. Yeah.
get
So
you.
say it's a commercial photographer or a fashion photographer like me works with somebody who's out of the wedding industry. They might not be ready to change their look if I ask them for a concept or
Right,
change
okay.
the lighting and blah blah. Can you do this with the hair? And they might
Yeah.
not because they've been in an echo chamber so long. Maybe they've.
Am I in an echo chamber?
know.
Far out. You got me
Yeah.
thinking.
Oh, you
Yeah.
got
Oh
me
my
thinking.
You got me-
god, sociology guys! I was raised on this stuff. So
That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah, in a sense, you guys are like. I feel like you guys are very open.
Right.
If you're doing this stuff like the catch up, it's the opposite of that.
Oh,
Right.
right.
Because
Okay.
like somebody who's sitting maybe inside one of those sort of echo chamber sort of situations is going out and looking at this podcast. So people who would want to avoid feedback and stuff, who have like either a sense of entitlement or they're afraid of their weaknesses and things like that. So I think going back to mentors, gosh, I go on tangents, guys.
No, keep going. It's good.
With mentors, I think I'm 28, right? I'm very young, very, very,
Extremely,
very young.
extremely young.
100%.
Yeah.
And I have to remember that. I have to remember that it doesn't matter how much. And as a female, I find that I overcompensate. I've overcompensated in the industry by putting myself forward because you have to.
Right.
By putting myself forward and having a very masculine sort of energy. And just being boom, 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 and trying to impress people because I have that sense of like insecurity.
Do you mean like
about-
working hard, like working hard at what you're doing? Is that what you
As
mean?
a
No,
female.
not yeah.
As
Well,
a
working
female
hard
is-
is working hard, but
Yeah.
like presenting myself with a certain attitude and
Okay.
things like that.
Yeah, sure.
And I might come off when I was younger. I would come off more arrogant, a lot more arrogant, and a lot more not open to feedback and things like that. I'll be like, I'm the only one who does what I do. I don't need a mentor.
right,
Blah
okay.
blah blah.
But it
But you know
happens to
that's
all of us, I
maturity,
feel.
dude,
Yeah.
isn't it?
We kind of all go through that sort of like, we think we know everything,
Yeah.
but we don't. But then when we're a bit older, we kind of.
I mean, every
realize,
time
like,
you look
"Ooh."
back, every time you look back at something you did when you were younger, you're like, oh.
Like I remember when we did that shoot when we first met.
Mm.
During that time, I was like, I thought I had it figured out, and I thought I knew everything. But then now looking back at it now and learning everything I have from the past maybe year and a half, 2 years, now I'm like, that kid didn't know nothing. Like, that kid was talking shit
But at the
out of his
time,
ass. But at the time,
yeah,
I was like, oh yeah, this is
Yeah,
I
exactly,
know what
yeah.
I'm doing. I'm full confident.
Yeah, yeah.
I go into it very confidently.
so it's definitely like
I had no idea.
maturity, like you
Mm.
said, yeah.
Have you got a situation, Brendan, that's like that almost, like in the acting sort of theatre world?
Oh,
Do you do
100%.
theatre or TV acting?
No, TV acting, yeah.
TV acting.
Well,
Tell me a
let me-
little bit about
Yeah,
that.
the first time I went for an audition, it was so embarrassing. No, so it wasn't even that long ago. I'm saying like this was ages ago. It wasn't long, like last year. And I went into this audition. I prepared for it. You know, I thought I was the man. And I went in, and it was actually a SAE. And I went in, and as soon as I
What's
went into the
SAE?
audition, it's
that's
Sorry,
the-
guys.
no,
No,
it's all
that's the
good.
uni I go to.
Yeah, the
It's like
uni
a
that he
creative
goes to.
institute.
Oh, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Oh, is
Yeah.
it one of those like privatized like colleges?
Yeah, it's privatized.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, these two go there.
Oh,
But,
awesome. Oh, is that why you're talking about like assessments and
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah,
those two
cool.
are-
Cool.
But yeah, I went into this audition, and I don't know, in my head, I was like, man, I got this. I'm the man. And I walked in, and as soon as I sat down,
Did you vomit?
No, everything just went out of my head. I didn't know what was going on. I forgot my name. Like,
Oh my gosh,
it was so
really?
embarrassing. Yeah, and then I tried to do this, what I thought was a perfect audition, and it was so embarrassing. I forgot my lines. I didn't even finish it properly, and they just literally, they were so nice about it. But they're like, "Hey, is it your first time?" I was like, "Yep." And then we went. They ended up getting me on as an extra, so I was really grateful for that. And that was like my
awesome.
first sort of introduction to any sort of film. Yeah.
I think maybe there is a sense like you definitely need confidence. Don't get me wrong.
100%, yeah,
you definitely
100%.
need confidence, or you're never ever going to be noticed. Like in terms of like, it's more body language than anything else. I was having a conversation a couple of days ago about this sort of like body language. So if you're like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, even if you're behind the camera, it doesn't really matter. If you're kind of in like that and looking down and your feet are kind of together and stuff like that, it's not very welcoming. You don't always have to be grandiose or very vocal to be confident. But I find, when I was young, I was a bit of a dick, to be honest.
Right.
And I had a chip on my shoulder, number one.
You're a twin.
Twin.
Yep.
Number two, Arab. Number three, nobody from my family or that I know kind of in my circle is in a creative industry or freelancer or so I was kind of like, I am the best.
Yeah.
I am so great.
Talk a little bit more about that. Were your parents supportive of what you were doing, or?
Absolutely. My parents are really cool. They're very progressive people.
Yep.
They're very like left. They're very so my dad's Egyptian and my mum's Australian. They met quite young. And they had all of us in this very small amount of time, me and my sister and my brother. They're always very supportive of what I do. My mum taught me about art.
Oh, okay.
So my mum taught me about art and culture, and she always had a camera with her on holidays and things like that.
Yep.
So I find that I see the beauty in the world and from my mum, I've got a lot of art history knowledge.
Yeah, right.
I'm very, very nerdy. Like I wouldn't take you guys to a gallery because you'd just be like, oh my God, she's taking the piss.
I have probably like 10 minutes in me in a gallery.
Really? I got like freaking all day, dude.
When you say
depends
art,
on what
is it like,
gallery.
is it just painting or is it like sculptures, like everything? Because to me, if you say
any visual
art,
medium.
if you tell me art, I'm like straight away, I just think pictures. That's all I got.
I don't really like modern art. I create modern art.
Right.
So funny. But I don't like it. Like, that stuff at the MCA and whatever. Like, like exhibitions of toilet seats and stuff. I don't find that artistic.
Gotcha,
I'm not into that.
I'm
into like...
proper art.
art. I'm into Impressionism. I'm into Van Gogh, Toulouse-Lautrec, all that sort of thing.
Nice.
I'm into stuff that I can't create.
Wow.
I'm amazed at stuff that, like, how did they do that? Other than that, I'm like, meh.
Whatevs.
I just wanted to ask you a little bit more because we'll probably put up a little picture of how you light your photography. How do you approach a lighting situation? Your like Ali style
from scratch.
Do you start off with like a key light, a fill light? Like, what do you do if you're willing to share that secret?
It's no secret. I teach.
Yeah, nice.
Like, I'm a tutor and I teach. I put it all up on my socials and everything. Like, there's no secret. I don't really care. Anybody can steal anything that they like from me. I don't really mind.
Nothing's original, yeah?
No, nothing is. I don't think so. And it's not that it's originality. It's just sharing the craft.
Yeah.
Really. Like, I am quite like a social person, so I don't mind. It's funny. It depends. I'm usually talking to the person who's the subject while I'm lighting it. So this question is really funny. I don't build. I know my lighting setup
Straight away.
beforehand. Have you heard of the 7 Ps, guys?
7 Ps?
Pre-planning prevents piss poor production.
That's going to come up.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's
Just
awesome.
say one more time.
Say one more time.
Pre-planning prevents piss poor production.
Wow.
Right?
Preparation.
Yeah. This
Awesome.
electrician taught me that in film class. His name was Michael Sparky. So when I was doing film, he was an audio dude, an audio engineer and a mechanic, and he taught me that. And I always plan it. Like I said, I'm very mathematical minded, and I'm a traditionalist with lighting. So I will like literally sit there the night before, as long as it takes, and just do sketches.
Wow.
Because
Yeah,
I already
that's what I do for
I already know what it's going to look like. I already know that the fill light is going to be on number 2, which is going to give a little bit more fill, but still have shadow under the chin. I know that my beauty dish above is going to light it, and it's going to be a little bit hotter than the fill light, because you don't want... So main light, okay. for everybody else. Main light is the light that you use to shoot the subject.
Yep.
Fill light is to fill the shadows. But you're not going to put the fill light at the same power as the main light. Why do you think that is?
I wouldn't have a clue, to be honest.
Imagine if
I
the
know,
fill
but-
light
You
and
know,
the
okay,
main
yeah.
light is
I'm
at the
actually
same
listening, like,
fill light and the main light is at the same power. That might be okay for product photography, but when you're shooting a person, imagine if the main light, the huge big
Be too
light
bright.
source, bang, and you want to
bright.
fill light, you're only supposed to fill the shadows.
Yeah.
So what happens is if it's at the same power, you're flattening the whole face
Oh.
completely. Do you see how there's a shadow under my chin now?
Yep.
Because this light is my main light up here, and these white things are at lesser power, let's just say, and they're reflecting this light to me.
Right. Okay.
Whereas if you have it on the same power, both of them,
Wouldn't
it's
be-
going to be totally flat.
Yeah.
No dynamic, no shape.
But it depends on the shoot though. 'Cause
Yeah.
most-
Depends on the shoot.
yeah.
Depends on the shoot. You can use 2 white soft boxes on the side, but traditionally, for filming, let's say emotive stuff with atmosphere, stuff with character, you want to put the main light powered down, a little bit powered down, and the main light is always in front.
Always.
Fill light. So main light is either to the side or above, and the fill light is always on camera axis.
Oh, that's
So if I'm
different
shooting-
for us. We do.
Really?
We do key light is at the front, and our fill light is usually sorry. Our main light is usually at the front, and our fill light is usually around the side.
You didn't
That's
like that?
incorrect.
Yeah, for film, that's
Oh,
not
for
all.
film?
Anthony did
for
not
film,
like that.
I'm not saying
You know why? You know why for film? Because with film they use constant lights, so your lights are always shining,
Exactly.
whereas mine are strobes. So
Exactly.
boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
So
But it's
I
interesting
would-
on what you say because
Yeah.
then I can take what you've said and
Use it
implement it. Yeah, it's
in your own
so
way.
cool.
well, the fill light. Scientifically, if you guys think about it, the fill light fills the shadows. So the only way that you're going to fill the shadows is straight on camera axis. So
Yeah,
think
that makes
about that
sense.
a little bit more.
Mm.
You can, I'm not saying that you can't use a main light and a fill light at different positions. I sometimes don't use a fill light at all. Sometimes I just shoot red,
Mm.
purple, and green
That's it.
at the back. Like sometimes I do all sorts of stuff, but
Yep.
technically I light the background with one light. It's got nothing to do with the subject. Usually I bump it up or bump it down. You measure the light at the back. It's got nothing to do with the subject at the front. So you've got to make sure that the subject is separated.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you want it darker or lighter?
Depends
Depends,
on what
just
you
depends.
want.
Depends on what you want.
Depends on
yeah.
what you want. But the subject, that lighting, it doesn't, because it's pumped at the the wall, it has nothing to do with the lighting of the subject at the front.
Right.
It should have nothing to do with it in terms of affecting it. Like it's going to be pumping at the wall, so it's not going to be pumping forward.
I've got one for you.
right?
What sort of lighting setup do you see too often and it's too saturated that you like? I'm sick of seeing this like the same lighting that everyone does.
Well, it's not even nobody really uses strobes that much. I think really hot lighting from an on-camera flash. Like I see it a lot. I
Yep.
see on-camera flash and I see speed lights.
Mm.
I think
Straight.
I don't know. I think LED lighting and like video lighting, like a lot of really white lighting, it bothers me.
Yeah.
I'd rather
like it?
use tungsten or like real warm lighting or colored lighting. You don't see colored lighting as much.
No, you don't.
If it's not in advertising, like it's in advertising and video clips and music, like everybody uses neon lights. Like
Yeah,
have you
right.
guys seen that? I'm sure you've seen the ASAP Rocky
Yeah.
film clip LSD. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah, that's like my kind of thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But
right.
I find on Instagram and stuff like that with like say like local magazines and things like
Yeah.
that and like street photography and whatever, it's very flat lighting. Like I
Yeah.
said, like using the lights at the same power. Although like they don't experiment enough, just turn the lights down, up,
Yeah.
experiment a little bit more to give it a little bit more dynamic
Yeah.
because it's a shame the models are so gorgeous or the
Yeah.
product has got such shape that you can play around and paint with
Yeah.
it. And there's so many possibilities with light. Like you could literally make probably something out of styrofoam and put it near a window. And it doesn't matter how much you move it, every single shot's different. It's about experimentation.
It's
I don't
awesome.
think people experiment enough
Yeah.
initially and then they jump on a shoot and they
Yeah,
shoot
right.
it flat. I don't like flat shots. I don't even like flat shots for like makeup or product or anything.
Yeah.
Flat shots are really like, but you know what, guys? It makes the money.
Yeah,
right.
that's what I
It
was
really
gonna
does.
say.
Flat
think-
lays make the money.
Do you think it's just because people just, I guess some people don't really care enough that they're just like, oh, I'll just go to the shoot, get my money and go?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And not only that, I find that there's not much personality in like product branding as much anymore. Like you find that in consumerist like culture and media, and say what would you call them now, that bullshit term, content creator. Sorry guys,
I don't like that.
Preach it.
it's the same thing. Like content creator is like a multitude of things, I suppose.
Yep.
But I find that with advertising and things like that now, compared to like the 70s and the 80s and stuff, it's very flat.
Really?
It's lacking in personality because there's not any really subcultures or fashion or the like strong fashion stuff anymore.
Right. Okay.
Like, you know, everything used to follow music and pop culture. And now it's sort of like, oh, I want to see the most streamlined sort of product and then I'll buy it because it's visually pleasing to me. It doesn't make me passionate. It doesn't make me stressed. It doesn't elicit any kind of emotion or memory or anything. It just makes me feel like, oh, it's like a little bit comfortable, or that's okay, because life is so stressful.
Yeah.
Now, it's just all consumerist culture. So in terms of flat lighting, it's definitely very boring, but it's marketable and it works.
So you've already touched on a little bit of your inspirations, but who else do you look up to? It doesn't have to be photography; it can be anything. Who's someone that you like? Oh, I want to kind of
Be like,
not be like, but just
Doesn't
you
have to
take.
be
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
celebrities,
Just,
can be like
could be anyone.
anyone.
That's a really funny question. My niece.
Yep.
She's 9. Her name's Scarlett, and every time I'm around her, because I'm a stress head, right?
Yeah.
Stress head. Got a bit of a temper. I'm a bit spicy. And whenever I hang out with her, she just runs around with no shoes and hugs trees and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she's like my massive like muse inspiration, because she
Why not?
reminds me that, you know, that shit really matters.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be present, or the Buddha says, if you want to be present,
Yep.
be around kids and animals,
Yeah.
because they're always in
awesome.
the present moment. You know, when you
Yeah.
tell a kid to go to bed, no, why?
Yeah.
They don't remember that they got to go to bed every night. They're bloody devastated. Because they're
Wow,
not
that's
thinking of the
awesome,
future.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not
Yeah.
thinking of the
Living
past.
for
Like,
the
oh, in the
moment,
past I
yeah.
had to go to bed at 8. Now I got to go
Yeah.
to bed at 8 now. You know, so
Yeah.
I think kids and animals are my inspiration.
Yeah.
But my my visual inspiration is David LaChapelle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, do you guys know David
Yeah, I
LaChapelle?
know.
Yeah, David LaChapelle is like the god of photographers, like David LaChapelle and Jeff Bark.
Yeah. Right. What draws you to him? Like just as
The
photography
color,
stuff?
the
Yeah,
color,
okay,
and
yeah.
the theatricalness
Yeah.
of it all. It just looks like a film set. Like obviously
okay.
there's like, you know, at least 20 plus people involved like in every single production that he does. But he is a very, very rare photographer in terms of like celebrity
Yeah.
photography.
And he'd have the funds to do that stuff. as well,
100%,
100%.
100%. So if I end up being like David LaChapelle, coming
will.
in and just shooting one shot and leaving in my
Yeah.
own studio, I'd be really happy.
Good on you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's good. You got to keep setting those milestones and keep aiming higher, higher every time.
I think so. I
Just
think so.
Yeah. Keep people like that in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Are you into film? Like not like doing film, but like movies. Do you like what type of movies?
Yeah, I do. I'm more of like I don't know. I don't like aesthetic film. Like, you know, David Lynch. He's probably, you know, who David Lynch is the director. Does like Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks,
No.
Razorhead. He aesthetically, he's definitely a really cool inspiration. I don't really love beautiful film though. I like well acted. Like I love The Godfather.
Okay.
Like
So you're watching films more for the acting?
Oh, dude, it is beautiful aesthetically and like acting wise.
Mm.
I'm not into really modern movies and film. I'm a bit of an
Yeah.
old school sort of person.
So like Scorsese type film?
Yeah, Scorsese, definitely.
What about Blade Runner?
Oh, I love Blade Runner.
That's sort of
Aesthetically,
aesthetic.
I
The
don't
old one or
really,
the
I
new
don't
one?
really fuck with the concept too much. Like a lot of that whole futuristic consciousness, what
Yeah.
are we type of thing stresses me out. I'm pretty.
You know, do you like Wes Anderson?
Yeah, I love
'Cause
Wes
I feel like
Anderson.
your style.
Wes Anderson is very cutesy.
Yeah. it's
But I really
colourful.
like things like Goodfellas, The
Yeah,
Godfather. I
right.
like gangster.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I like
It's like two different
mafia.
styles.
Yeah, well, like not for the look. See, I'm like
Because your
very.
photography is like dreamy and nice, and then you love
Well, you know
gangster
what?
shit.
Someone asked me once about like why I shoot
Yeah.
color and why I don't really fuck with black and white or anything like that. And I think life is so complicated. Like my life, especially because of me. I'm not saying because of anybody else. It's very life is so dark and complicated and confusing and things like that. Not to put like a negative spin on it or anything. I don't want to do photography that communicates that. I want to do photography for fantasy always.
Okay.
I want to create something that's going to make people laugh, like a bit campy, to make people have fun, really. Like musicians, they just want people to have fun and dance and everything like that. I want to do that. I don't really want to communicate like my inner turmoil.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's not very personal to me. Like when I see that type of photography, I like it. Don't get me wrong. I'm a person with lots of substance. But in terms of like photography and film, I want to create something that's going to visually stimulate me and take me out of like my headspace or reality.
Yeah,
That's
right.
awesome.
Would you
Yeah.
say you're trying to like create an escape for people as well, like in the same in the
100%.
process?
100%. I think photography, there's a lot of realism now. Like there's minimalism, realism.
Yeah.
I don't fuck with that much. I'm still quite like in the old school, like dreamy 60s, 50s days. Like I love the like 50s aesthetics of suburbia and things like that. There's a lot like deep shit, like eerie shit going on underneath. And you can kind of see that with my photography as well. That's why I try to convey. There's a lot underneath the surface.
Yeah, right.
But I don't really like photo like street photography, like black and white street photography or photography of homeless people or like not like I'm saying like I'm an activist in all sorts of situations and I will do documentary photography for a job if anybody hires me or asks me, but with my own stuff I find that I would prefer to be a kid.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
just segueing into that, you have a campaign that you're going to do. Yeah, you like that segue, yeah.
It's actually been like for a couple of years. I do like a portrait series like every year.
Just go into that, yeah.
Last year I did a portrait series called Sweet Dreams. I don't know if you guys seen that one.
Yeah, I wanted to be on it, but scheduling and all that kind of stuff. Just
Scheduling.
I messaged you. I messaged you and I was like, I really want to be on this. And
right, like 20 times. Anyway, so Sweet Dreams was just like I had done so much campaigning for like the rights of like interns to get paid. Like one of my slogans is exposure, more like exploitation. Play creatives.
Yeah.
You know, and I found
sign,
a culture shock with living in Melbourne. Like I moved to Melbourne when I was 22 and I came back when I was 24. And because I love Sydney, Melbourne gets a little bit old. I love Melbourne. Like it's one of my favorite places to live and be. But I find Sydney people we're a lot more intense.
I heard the art there is like amazing.
It's incredible. You should definitely live there.
Yeah,
like you should
nice.
definitely live there for a couple of years, get an art residence. That's how I made my name.
Oh,
That's
really?
how I came up and was able to pay like cheaper rent.
Yeah, right.
And like make my art projects and stuff like that. So when I came back to Sydney, I was very stifled. I wasn't able to move that much. I wasn't able I didn't have so much of a platform in Sydney, and I was kind of like, I'm going to do something about this. So I did like a campaign called Hear Our Voice, which is like a sort of street art campaign. So I shot everybody with like a sign, say whatever they wanted, like everybody in the
So
youth.
they wrote down what they wanted to say on the sign?
Yes,
Yeah,
what they
right,
wanted to
okay.
say. So it's basically people just representing themselves. So I was just the tool, and I just had the studio,
So
and
cool.
I just used, my aesthetics, which is like a colored background, and made sure like they wore something opposite to the background to pop. But again, I didn't want it in the echo chamber. What I would have done is put it on Facebook, put it on my Instagram, talked about it and had discussions and all these like really sort of deep in depth, like pseudo political stuff.
Yeah.
Complaining.
Yeah.
Right? We complain a lot in our
Yeah.
generation, especially. We don't have that much to complain about.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah. So what I decided was like, okay, people who are going to see this are going to agree with it anyway. What's the point? Like, of course we need to get paid. Of course, like me and you, like we're all sitting here,
Yeah.
right? We're going, yeah, of course we're going to get paid. Of course, this and it's not going to help anybody. We're just complaining with each other, making ourselves try to feel
Yeah.
good, right?
Mm.
So I thought, okay, I'm going to print these out in huge posters and put them around the street,
Yep.
so the public can see it.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
And at the same time, you're putting their voice out there.
Absolutely.
As well. That's so cool.
Absolutely.
It's a big deal, man. Like
Yeah.
a lot of those people, like you said, some of them don't get paid sometimes, or they'll take them on the trip before they pay them. That I reckon that's
Yeah.
awesome that you're doing, and you're putting their voice out there. That's
Exactly.
The main thing. That's awesome.
Well, look in like government and legislation. There's no unionists for artists.
Really?
There's no There's no fair work and trade for freelancers.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
No. You can't go and like, say if you do a shoot, regardless of if you have an ABN or not, that's why you have to write your own contracts. You've got to write your own contracts in terms of agreements and stuff. And once they sign it, then it becomes a legal document. But for example, when I was young, I would just be like, oh yeah, they're going to pay me. And it's sort of like a verbal agreement. And then you go to the job and it takes them 2 months to pay you. And there's no way in like a trade, like as a plumber, you'd be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to come, take a photo of you, put it on Instagram, and then that's your exposure for the plumber. The plumber's going to be like, are you serious?
Yeah,
Pay me
obviously.
or I'm not leaving. I'm calling the police.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I'm calling for work and trading, or I'm getting some big bloke to come and intimidate you. Whatever it is. I don't advise that, guys.
It's such a
Sorry.
good point that you said that about comparing it to a plumber, because that's so true. Like as like freelance videographers or photographers, we can't do that. We can't just be like, hey, I took your photo, pay me. They're just going to be like, dude, get the...
You can drag them through the dirt and defame them if you like. That's more my style. I'm not really...
What a word.
No, defamation is falsehood, so I wouldn't call it defamation.
Yeah.
You can't really get sued for defamation unless it's false.
Right.
So if you really prove, like there was, I worked for an interior designer or a property stylist, and she promised that I was going to sign a contract and employ me. And then she started using my photos last year. Started using my photos all of a sudden and claim them for her business. And I got about 30, 40 people to comment and drag her through the dirt and say, hey, pay people. This is really old hat. I'm sorry, boomer. It's not like it used to be. Like, we need money. We live on our own. Sydney's expensive. Like, this is really, really
Definitely
bad
is.
form. And I got... because I'm quite resourceful, I got lots of advice from like arts lawyers and things like that. I wasn't going to do anything. I just wanted to make a point of it.
Yeah.
I wasn't bullying either. I just kind of said, take my photo off of your business.
Do you see
Or credit me.
Do you see
Yeah.
a shift happening with like freelancers getting paid? Like, do you see it, or you don't think it will happen for another couple years?
No, I don't. I think I'm not going to be super despondent, but you see all over Facebook, all of those like creative pages and things like that. You find a lot of the time, everybody was just too willing to work
we'll
for
wait
free.
for that just to go down a bit.
Sorry about that, guys. Some technical difficulties. Still working it out, but we got there. Let's go.
Oh, are you live streaming this?
Yeah. No,
Oh,
I'm joking.
see.
I wish we were.
Okay,
Whatever.
sorry guys.
No, it's all good.
So basically your question was in terms of, do you think it's like getting better?
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
are getting paid what they're worth?
Well, I guess it's
No,
a
I
two-part
think
question,
it's-
just so we can almost wrap it up. But
Yeah.
the question is, do you think there's a shift in people getting paid? And if not, what's the best way for us to do this? Like, what's, for anyone watching, how can we support creatives getting paid the best way, the effective way?
Well, it's really simple. Think about it. If you, as a creative or somebody in a business, is willing for someone to come on, shoot and work for you for free to make you money. Like I do shoot and work for free for like, let's just like call them love projects. Some people call them love projects. Some people call them collaboration. That's okay if you're not making money.
Yep.
That's okay if it's not commercial. But if you're willing to have a freelancer come onto your job, say like, for example, you're a musician and you want somebody to shoot for you, put it out there, and that's going to promote you and get you gigs and get you jobs, which is money, translates into money. If you are willing to devalue that person who's making you money, what does that say about you? What does that say about how you value yourself? And that person psychologically is devaluing themselves, because that person will also work for free because they don't understand how it works. So if you pay them what they owe you, what they're owed, or at least a trade-off of some sort, whether it's money, whether it's contra, anything, it really communicates not only to the collaboration of the project, it communicates to everybody else that you value yourself. Mm-hmm. If you're going to pay for a photographer, or you're going to pay for an artist, or you're going to pay for somebody who is buffing up your craft or your business or your entity, corporation, whatever it is, that means that you value the people that work for you, who make you money, and it's all sustainable.
As it should be.
Yeah, you're really not sending a good message if you have gotten to where you've gotten because you've gotten paid, and then you're not willing to pay another person, and you get some amateur in, and then they complain because the work is subpar because they're not getting paid. And it's like, well, maybe if you paid them, if you like their work so much, pay them. Don't seek somebody out and be like, well, you work for me for free, it might be good for you. That's a friggin' insult.
No, 100%.
I totally agree with you on that, man. That's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, people try to cut corners anyway. It's human nature.
Yeah.
People are ambitious anyway. I'm ambitious. If I could hire someone for free, maybe a couple of years ago, I would have. But you really, really got to think about investments. Investing. You got to spend money to make money. I know it sounds very rich dad, poor dad. It's like, yeah.
No, sort of. Yeah.
I'm cynical about everything.
Right, okay.
But I find that really, if you value your own craft, you're going to value everybody else's.
Yep. And
you need to have a recess of money on the side in order to do that. If you can't afford it, do it yourself.
Yeah,
okay.
100%.
That's good advice, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to wrap up? Oh, before we wrap up, do you want to talk to the camera and just see how people can find you if they want to work with you? If they want to do business with you? Yeah.
Well, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. My Instagram handle is Alexandra Mentura Photography. Alexandra Mentura Photo. Or my website is alexandramentura.photography. That's it on Google. alexandramentura.photography. No www, no .com, no any of that extra stuff. Just alexandramentura.photography. But I'm sure you guys will have a link or whatever later.
Everything, yeah.
I do all sorts of stuff. Hit me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we really appreciate you coming in because we love what you're doing and what you stand for.
100%. Thanks for creating a voice for people that sometimes are too scared to say anything about it. It really makes a difference.
People have their own voices. I'm just a tool. I'm not creating anything. I'm just a tool for people to express themselves and represent themselves, and also to create like a sort of more tight-knit community where it's all self-sustainable, I think.
That's awesome, yeah. Well, we need more people like
exactly. And we'll definitely get you back on down the road to
amazing
catch up.
I had so much fun. I love listening to the sound of my own voice.
Be back.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks guys, appreciate it.